Hey guys, how's it going? This is Frankie with Be My Guest podcast. We have a special guest today. We're going to be interviewing, and he's going to share a little bit about what he does and some services. But hey, listen, I want to tell you right now, thank you for visiting and watching this podcast as we interview inspiring entrepreneurs and people that are doing some impactful things in the business sector, people that do everyday things, services that sometimes get forgotten about but are so needed. So today, without further ado, I'm going to let him introduce himself and what he does. I'm going to bring on our guest right now, Richard. Richard, how's it going today, man?
Going great, thanks. Going great.
I appreciate you joining us today. And you're coming from all the way from the other coast. I'm on the Florida coast. We just happened to dodge this nasty hurricane. And right before we got on, we were talking about how you're in California on the other coast and how you don't get a lot of heads up when it comes to earthquakes and other things. And we do get a little bit of heads up. So thank you for coming on the show today, Richard.
No problem. No problem.
Now, Richard, just to give you a little bit of guidance here, you're with the Kurt Wall Group. Is that how you pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Kurt Wall Group, and I want to know from you. I believe you do some bookkeeping and financial accounting services, things like that. Before you get started, let me ask you this: how long have you been with the Kurt Wall Group? Is this your company or is this somebody else's company, and you're working with it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Kurt Wall Group is my company, and I've been working under that umbrella for 4 to 5 years. Was doing taxes on the side since the mid-90s, and spent most of my career in on the business side in corporate accounting. So ended up working for various size companies, anything ranging from doing consulting within a multi-billion-dollar company to being director of finance for a $300 million grocery chain out here in Southern California.
Got you. So, Richard, tell us what got you started in the accounting and financial services, bookkeeping services that you do today.
When I got out of college, I was working in retail management and got fairly burned out with that because I was working 6 days a week, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours a day, and recently married, trying to move along with that. So ended up getting a lucky break and moving into the accounting department at the company I was working for. And since then have worked my way up from accounts payable clerk to controller of a couple of different companies on up to the director of finance for the grocery chain. Then in 2018, I got laid off and decided I was going to do a bunch of contract and project work through an agency. Came to realize that working through an agency, I was making about half of what they were billing the client. Mm. So I was looking at that going, well, if my value to the clients is X amount, I should be getting closer to X amount. So I went out on my own.
Got you. So so you had an entrepreneur itch to start branching out on your own, grab your own clients. What was that like, making that transition from being a person that worked for the team or a corporation to now you got to create your own clients, you got to go find your own clients? How was that transition? How long did it take, and what was some of the challenges that you faced?
It's taken a while. What was the hardest part was trying to get work that lasts throughout the year. Doing tax work was fairly easy because that everybody wants someone to do their taxes and they hate doing taxes themselves. And it's seasonal. So we're doing a lot of work in March and April, and then a lot of work in October because of the extensions. But getting income throughout the year was a lot more difficult. And that has been where I've had to put in a lot of work dealing with networking groups and advertising and reaching out to people, a lot of cold calls, reaching out to companies. My focus is with small and mid-sized businesses, especially those in the early stage or startup businesses. So I end up with a lot of clients who are in the service industries who have been working with companies and have decided to go out on their own.
Gotcha. So this sounds like it was fairly recent that you made this transition. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Last few
how
years.
long did you, how long did you work for someone else before you decided recently to change and start your own business?
Well, working on the corporate side, I've got over 35 years experience working for companies. After I got laid off in 2018, was working on project work for agencies, and just recently went all in on doing my own stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. So right now, it sounds like you're in the middle of drumming up business, getting clients, trying to find those that need the services. Let's talk about why people need your services. And it sounds like you're more on the bookkeeping side. Is that right? Than accounting, or how does that work for you?
Well, I have to be careful what I say because some states like California have regulations that limit the terms you use. And I'm not a CPA, I'm a certified management accountant since almost all of my career was spent on the corporate side. So I have to be careful saying that I'm an accountant unless I'm working within industry.
Right.
So based on that, there are a couple issues in getting clients. One, the tax side is a lot easier. Secondly, on the accounting/bookkeeping side, people are really very familiar with the term CPA, Certified Public Accountant. And whether they really need a CPA or not, they focus on those three letters. I liken myself to when you go to the doctor's office because you're not feeling well, you may see a nurse practitioner or you may see a physician's assistant, and they take care of you and deal with most of the things that you deal with. You don't necessarily need a doctor. Same with the CPA. CPAs, one, are not necessarily well versed in the taxes because a lot of them don't do taxes. And a lot of CPAs have been through the public side so that they can do official audits and official reviews, but a lot of smaller businesses don't need that aspect of it to run their business and make the
Right.
decisions that they need to make.
Gotcha. Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play a commercial. When we come right back, I'm going to ask my man Richard here more about what the services he offers entails and how the benefits of that service can help a business grow and go to the next level. I kind of have an idea of what that answer would be, but let's wait until we play this commercial. When we come right back, we'll hear those answers straight from Richard. Hey guys, this is Frankie, and I want to come to you and let you know I want to connect with you. You're watching and listening to Be My Guest podcast, and I want to be able to help you with your business, your life, and your income. You can go to my website at frankieammons.com, and I got a ton of things that you can use right away to implement in your business, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're trying to connect on social media, learn more about my story, or even book a call so I can help you go to the next level. The calls that I book here with you are absolutely free, help you get some insight, reach to, the deeper parts of the things that are blocking you from going to the next level. And I have tons of ways to connect with you, whether it be giving you tips or even the services that I offer: graphic design, website design, marketing, CFO services, business advisor, even business broker, and podcast solutions. If any of these things speak to you and you need to find out more of how we can connect with you and how my team and myself can help you go to the next level, I'd love to do that. Go to my website again. It's frankieammons.com and figure out how you can connect with us and with me and my team so we can help you, your life, and your business go to the next level. All right, we're back, and this is Be My Guest podcast. We have Richard here with the Kirkwall Group. He is a bookkeeper, someone that's helping a business get their financials in order. I know personally it's very important, so you understand, your financial statements, how to read them, how to understand them, and so that you can look for the things that will help you grow your business. So, Richard, if you could, I'm going to put you on the screen yourself. Just speak right into the camera and to the audience, and let them know how important it is and what's the benefits of having someone like yourself working in their business, even if they are outsourcing you. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, most people who start businesses don't start businesses because they like doing the paperwork. They start businesses because it's their passion, in some ways to make money, and that's their goal. A lot of small and medium-sized businesses, their focus is on two things when it comes to the business side, the back office side. And that is, one, they want to make sure their taxes are done and done correctly. And two, they want to look at their bank account and know that there's money there. And while those are both good things, they aren't necessarily the things that are going to help run the business in the long run. Doing the taxes and saving tax money as you go along is one of the primary interests. The other thing is making sure that your record keeping is correct so that in the long run, you have the right knowledge to move your business forward. In a lot of cases, you want to know what types of clients are the most profitable, where you're making money so you can focus on those things, where your money is coming from and going out to with the expenses, and using that to plan more of a cash flow forecast for the rest of the year, and then a strategic plan going out anywhere from 1 to 5 years so that you know where you can get to. Many small businesses and medium-sized businesses fail within the first few years because they don't keep a strong eye on cash flow and getting the money in and making sure that the money goes out in proper ways.
So talk about what exactly, for those that are just learning this, what is cash flow? What does that mean for a business?
Cash flow is taking into account your revenue streams, the income coming in, and if you're billing people, making sure that they pay you within your terms so that you know that money's coming in. And on the expense side, it's being able to pay the bills as they come up and recognize when you're going to have cash in the bank and how long you're going to have that cash there, so that you're looking at not just a positive bank balance now, but you're looking at the fact that you don't want to be blindsided by larger bills or unexpected bills a month from now, 2 months from now. You want to make sure that your revenues are going to cover those things so that you can cover your commitments.
Yeah. For a lot of businesses, I've heard the statement made that cash flow is like blood flow of a business. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, yes. Many businesses, especially startups, work on what's called a cash basis. So in their books, they're recording income when the cash comes in, and they're recording expenses when the cash goes out. You still have to do the planning so that you know in 3 months you've got this big bill looming over your head and you're going to be able to cover it and not have an issue.
Got you. Yeah, so cash flow is very, very vital to businesses across the board. Let me ask you this question. What's the benefit of someone hiring someone like yourself, outsourcing the service, besides doing it themselves for a business?
You know, recently there have been a lot of ads on TV and on the radio from companies that say, oh, you can do it yourself when it comes to your bookkeeping. And if you are, for example, a plumber or an HVAC technician, you're putting in 40 hours a week or more doing your craft. If you are not in the understanding of the financial side, the terminology, what's best for your company, how to basically stretch the dollars within your company, you're having to spend additional time on top of that time you're doing your craft to try and learn and understand how to record things. There are nuances to the way you record things in your bookkeeping system that don't necessarily make sense to a layman, but it's the way you need to record things for what's called generally accepted accounting principles, and what you're going to need to record the right way for your taxes. If you want to get a loan from the bank, you need to have your financials in order. You need to have these things in order, and that's a lot of extra effort on top of what you're doing to produce in your business.
And when you're talking about when you're talking about bookkeeping, you're talking about a cured, is that how you pronounce it? System or cash basis? That's the two different main ones. Is that right?
Yeah, cash basis or accrual basis. And the cash basis, as I said, was you record income when the money comes in, and you record expenses when you pay the money out. Under the accrual system, you record things when they happen.
Right.
So if I was a plumber and I need a job for XYZ company today, and I invoice them and they're not going to pay for 30 days, I would end up recording the income when I did the job. And then I've got the additional step that I've got to keep an eye on that receivable from the company on when the invoice is going to be paid in 30 days.
Got you. And which one, from what I've been told, accrued is the standard, right? Is that what the typical
accrual is what's used by the big companies?
Gotcha.
It's what's used by most corporations. A lot of smaller entrepreneurs are used to using cash as they begin. The problem with that sometimes is if you're going to give somebody payment terms and you're going to say, okay, here's an invoice, pay me in 30 days, that you're not recognizing that income until you get paid on those 30 days. And that's sometimes hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to get their wrap their minds around.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be a little daunting and confusing for someone who's focusing on a certain service or solution or product they're selling or offering, and then they got to figure out the whole accounting services and solutions. And so, in my recommendation, even if you're just starting off, you should really, consult services like from Richard for bookkeeping and things like that. Because look, your business's health is not just acquiring new clients or customers, but also managing what you already have, your assets, your financials. And would you agree? Most entrepreneurs and business owners don't even know how to read a P&L or a balance sheet and don't understand what they're for and what they're about. Can you share with us what those statements are about and how we can understand them better?
Yep, that would be correct. With the P&L, also called an income statement, that's over a time period, and that's going to recognize your revenue coming in and your expenses being paid to get you to a bottom line number, net income. Balance sheet is going to consist of your assets and your liabilities and how much ownership you have within the company. And it gets really interesting because I've seen a lot of people who start out, just for example, if they buy a car for the company, so they take out a loan on that car, and they'll end up taking the payments every month and being in an accrual basis, they incorrectly record the whole payment each month as an expense when it isn't. You should be depreciating that asset, and then the only expense you're recording in addition to that is going to be the interest on the loan. But that's something that a lot of people don't put in place the right way.
Right. So how important is it to understand those statements for the health of your business?
It's very important because you're going to use that to know or to make your projections and forecasts and do your budget going forward and do your strategic plan to know when to expect money to come in and when to expect money to go out, and to understand where you stand. One of the issues that you have is when you do your taxes, that depending on your legal structure and business structure, the net income or net loss, you need to take into consideration how much money you've put in the beginning of the business, how much basis you have, to see how much of that loss you can take this year or whatever going forward.
Right. Yeah, this is some good stuff, guys. Listen, the importance of this is it's on the top of the list. Even though you can quote unquote get away with it, in order to have a financially sound and healthy business, you need someone who understands the financials, how to properly record them and make sure it's accurate. And also, does it not, Richard, help them when it comes time to filing taxes, so they have something in order and something that's done properly? How beneficial is it for them to do that?
Well, it's important that you know what your numbers are, and if you're using a tax person, that you're able to give them the right numbers. And I've talked to a lot of tax people over my career. One of the issues that a lot of them have is businesses who maintain their own books and don't have an understanding of what they're doing makes it harder work for the tax professional to categorize things for the taxes. So you end up with, instead of your tax person spending 3-4 hours on your return, they're spending twice that amount or more to go through every line item on your books to make sure things are categorized correctly.
Yeah.
And they're going to charge you more for that.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is I'm an intermediary. Even though I'm not a CPA, I know what CPAs look for. I know what tax people look for. So if I'm not doing your taxes, if I'm just doing your bookkeeping, I'm going to make sure that the information that goes over to whatever professional you're using down the road is categorized correctly and properly, so that you can pay me for a couple hours at a lower rate than you're paying them for the additional work that they feel they have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important as well. I'm going to play another commercial. When we come back from that commercial, I want to ask Richard if he can define the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. Some people get confused about the difference and what they do and how you can utilize them. So when we're done with this commercial, we'll ask Richard that question. Stay tuned. You're watching Be My Guest podcast.
Hey, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Or maybe you already have a podcast. But here's the thing. How do you monetize your podcast? How do you make money using your podcast? Well, most people will think, well, I'm just going to get exposure because more people are going to see me. But here's the thing. That takes time. To grow an audience for your podcast, if you're already not known, it takes time. And maybe some of you don't even have the time or could afford the time it takes to grow that audience. But you need to be able to land clients. Well, guess what? I figured out a way how to do that using your podcast without any paid ads, without affiliate links, without AdSense on YouTube, without actually having an audience. You can start today landing clients with your podcast consistently. I have done it. And what I've done is I've put together a free training, absolutely free, no gimmicks, no strings attached. You can download it, you can watch it, and learn how you can start landing your ideal clients today. Here's the link, getclientswithpodcasting.com. That's getclientswithpodcasting.com. Go on there, fill the form out, get the free video, watch it and implement it, and start getting your ideal clients today with your podcast. I want to hear back from you so you can show me how you've made more money than ever using your podcast. I know you can do it. Go to getclientswithpodcasting.com.
All right, we're back, and I am Frankie, and this is my guest, Richard, and he is with the Kirkwall Group. He's a bookkeeper. He's a long-time experienced person. He's worked with the financials. He knows how to read a financial statement. Most of us don't, if you want to tell the truth, and he can do that and help you do that. And so you guys are watching Be My Guest, and we wanted to ask Richard this question. Can you tell us the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant so we can understand what the differences are and how we utilize each one of those services?
Well, in most cases, when people say accountant, they mean CPA, Certified Public Accountant. And a certified public accountant becomes a certified public accountant by taking a standard exam, which is multiple parts, multiple hours, and then spending a certain amount of time either in public accounting or working under another CPA. And where their experience is a lot of times is based in being able to sign off on financials as certified, being able to sign off on, a review, company reviews, and signing off on audits. Now, many bookkeepers just have the experience of being coming up through the ranks, working as a bookkeeper for business. And you have many bookkeepers who are limited in their experience and exposure. My background is 35 plus years in working within businesses, handling the accounting, working specifically with accounts payable and accounts receivable and payroll, and how all that flows into the financial reporting, and also doing what's called FP&A, which is financial planning and analysis, which includes budgeting, forecasting, and each month taking the financial statement, the income statement and balance sheet, and comparing them with the budget and figuring out why there are variances, what's causing them. And because of that background, we can take what the variances are, explain what's causing them, and provide that information to the business owner to say, okay, so your revenue is this amount. We had done the budget to figure it to be this X amount, and why we have shortfalls or overages. And same with a lot of the expenses, which can allow the business owner to look at his cost structure and say, okay, for this kind of job, I'm charging this amount. Maybe I should charge a little bit more, or maybe I should charge a little bit less. How does that flow into what my expectations are? I'm a certified management accountant, which is mostly working within the corporate side for most of my career, but it also includes a very strong emphasis on the FP&A and on the cost accounting. What makes up the cost structures of businesses and what their margins are and where they should be going forward, and predict them for the forecasts and the budgets.
Yeah. Now, Richard, is there a certain software that you use or recommend? I know a lot of people use QuickBooks. Is that what you use, or are you certified with that, or what's your recommendation on that?
I would recommend, in most cases, for a lot of businesses starting up, either QuickBooks Online or what's called Xero, XERO, which are both cloud-based softwares, and they are fairly easy from my side to set up the structure of what the chart of accounts should be and how we're going to set up the financials. One thing I always recommend to my clients is when we're starting out, shoot for the moon, do your planning, saying not what I need just right now, but look at what I may need 6 months in the future, a year in the future. What services am I going to offer? What products am I going to offer? So that we can build that in initially as much as possible, because it's easier to build the foundation at the beginning than to try and build a whole new wing later on when we've already got things going.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you're working with your clients, what's the interaction like? Are you talking to them once a week, once a month? How often can they interact with you, or what do you recommend?
Well, what we normally would set up is I do a free 30-minute consultation before we agree to anything to learn about their company, and we can put together a list of what they're expecting and what I recommend, which at the very least would be, best of all worlds, a monthly consultation to go over the financials. Some clients prefer to do it on a quarterly basis, but either way, we're going to go over the financials, where they stand. My goal is to follow what we used in the corporate world, which was trying to get them their financials wrapped up. If they're on a calendar basis and a monthly basis, would be within probably 5 days to try and get them the financials, because old and stale data is not going to allow them to make the decisions as in a timely basis that they need to.
Yeah.
Then what we end up doing is monthly or quarterly reviews, planning. If they want it, which I highly recommend, we put together cash flow forecasts for at least the next 3 months so that they can see what's going on and help them plan to make decisions. Now, if something happens in the meantime, they want to buy a truck for their business, they want to lease a building for their business, something like that, they can contact me at any time and usually get back to them within 24 hours to discuss the pluses and minuses of the situation and provide them what they need to make the decision.
Yeah. Now, I would assume towards the end of the physical year, you probably get a little more busy because people are trying to prepare for, end of year results and numbers. How does that work for you? Are you trying to wrap things up at the end of the month of December or the end of the year, or do you carry over everything to the next year in the first month or so for most of your clients? I know some businesses have different fiscal years based on when they start, whatever, but a lot of businesses I found do follow the calendar year as well. How do you work with that?
I would try, if they're on a calendar year, to do a lot of the wrap up at the end of November and put together a list of things we need to do in December and just keep in touch with them during December to make sure those things get done before December 31st. Then we would turn around, issue whatever W-2s they have to issue whatever 1099s they have to issue, and get their taxes done at the earliest possible so that we can decide if we're going to file based on the regular deadlines or if we need to file for an extension, and how we can move forward with that.
Yeah, and how important is it to be on top of that, especially with those deadlines coming up in the end of the year, new year, that kind of thing? How important is that, would you say?
It can be very important. One of the things that's going to come up this year for businesses that become limited liability companies, LLCs, this year, they have what's called the BOI, which is the beneficial ownership information filing, which is supposed to be done within 90 days of the establishment of the LLC. If a company was an LLC before January 1st of 2024, then their deadline is December 31st, 2024. You have a lot of penalties and interest that can come back to bite you. The IRS charges something like 8% interest daily when your payments are delayed. The BOI penalties are something like $500 a day if you miss the deadline. And a lot of these are unnecessary if you have your information correct, your scheduling correct, and your ducks in a row to get things done and meet the deadlines.
So let's talk about the BOI. You said if you're new LLC, you're supposed to have it done within 90 days. If you're an older LLC, you need to have it done by the end of December, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What is that BOI consist of? What is it about?
It's a filing that is done with what's called FinCEN, which is a group within the IRS and Treasury Department that was set up to help prevent money laundering of all things. And what they want to know with the BOI is they want to make sure when the companies are set up as LLCs, who owns them, who is the owner of record. And it requires filling out forms through FinCEN that include taking a picture of the driver's licenses or government issued IDs of whoever the owners are and validating that so that FinCEN can keep an eye on if there's any potential money laundering issues.
Got you. And what does that BOI stand for? Do you know?
Beneficial Ownership Information Reporting.
And is that something new that was just implemented this year?
It was implemented at either late last year or beginning of this year.
Got you. All right. And like you said, if you're not doing that, and that's just for LLCs, that's not for S Corp or C Corps, just LLCs.
It's just LLCs. You have a lot of people who do S Corps under LLCs, and they fall under it. Anybody who is a limited liability company, so that'll include anybody who is a sole proprietorship, partnership, or subchapter S that has filed an LLC with their state government, they have to do the BOI under FinCEN.
Gotcha. If you were LLC and you wanted to switch to S Corp for the purposes of distributions versus your salary, that kind of thing, how does that work? Is that something that someone can do through your services, or how does that work?
Yes, most of it I do. I also have a couple of attorneys who are business law attorneys that I have as references for me, just to make sure that if need be, I can go to them and check everything out. One of the things that people don't realize, in particular with S Corps, is with an S Corp, if you are one of the shareholders of the S Corp who materially participates in that company, you have to be paying yourself a salary. And that salary has to be based on reasonable compensation for what you do. If you're a sole proprietorship, you take owner draws. If you are a partnership, you take owner draws. If you are an S Corp, you're paying yourself a salary, and it's got to be based on taking your job description and seeing what that would be paid in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So if you're running the company as the CEO and you are a plumber or plumbing technician, then you've got to do a mixed calculation of what would I pay someone to be the CEO for X number of hours during the week? What would I pay somebody to be a plumbing technician for X number of hours a week? If you're not paying reasonable compensation, then the potential is when you get audited, the IRS is going to come back to you and say, justify what your salary is. And if you can justify it, then most likely they'll agree with it. If you don't have a strong justification, they're going to say, well, you're paying yourself too much or too little, and we're going to adjust that. And that ends up adjusting your net income, which adjusts what your taxes are based on, which creates a waterfall effect.
Right. Now, when you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, that would be under LLC, right?
It could be under LLC. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. LLC is a legal structure. That determination you get by filing with your state, usually state secretary of state. If you are a sole proprietorship, partnership, or an S corp, that's your tax status. And sole proprietorship, you don't really have to do anything for. You just file your taxes. Partnership, always recommend you have a partnership agreement, and then that partnership's going to issue you K1s, and you're going to file 1065s for taxes. If you're an S corp, that is an election that you have to file a separate form for with the IRS so that it's designated in their records, and then that's a pass-through entity for your income, and then your taxes get taxed at the rate that the individual who it's passing through to, as opposed to at the corporate level.
Got you. So you could be a LLC and still act like, and still have S corp status, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when someone's starting a new filing or creating a business or corporation, what would you recommend they start off with? Is it going to be determined based on what kind of business they're starting? Let's say they're by themselves, but yet they want to keep themselves in a situation where they know their earning potential may, have a big tax event. So maybe they want to do S corp because they want to, kind of what would you call balance it out with a good salary versus distributions. What would you say? What would you recommend? Should they do the LLC still or just file as the S corp?
I recommend to a lot of my clients that they start up with an LLC, because that provides a legal layer of protection between the assets and liabilities of the company versus their own personal things.
Right.
So if the company gets sued in general, whatever lawsuit that ends up, then it can only go after the assets or liabilities of the company as opposed to flowing all the way through to the individual. There is a difference with LLPs, which is limited liability partnership, which in a lot of states is more dependent for professionals such as accountants, doctors, attorneys, like that. And they have a lot of different rules regarding the liability that the partners can be held to. With the subchapter S corporation, I usually don't recommend companies rolling over to an S corp until their income is somewhere above $50,000 a year. What's going to happen is, because you have to pay yourself reasonable comp, you would end up, if your gross receipts are less than $50,000, you're going to end up having to record payments to yourself. But if you don't have the cash to pay them, they're going to sit on the books as money owed to you until you get money in to pay those. And it's not necessarily a benefit to take that salary until you start having the money coming in like that.
Right. And you said it's not very hard to change from LLC to the S corp, right?
No, it's for the IRS's recognition. There is a form that you file that just says you're electing to do an S corp, and the IRS in their time will eventually issue you an approval for that, saying, yes, that's good to go.
Okay.
IRS, because of the pandemic and everything else, still seems to be running behind with a lot of things, so that it may not happen in the first month to 2 months. It may take 3 months or more, but they will get to you with that designation.
Got you. So you recommend if your revenue, top line revenue is less than 50,000, you probably should stick to LLC. Is that right?
Yep.
And how does distributions work for LLC? I know it's worded differently, but like the business or the owners, shares or earnings, how does that work? How do they get taxed?
The owners are shareholders for what's called an SMLLC, which is single member LLC. And in that case, owners are allowed to pull money out as owners' draws as long as it's not in excess of accumulated profits or their basis in the company. If they put in X amount of dollars, if the company loses, that adjusts the basis, and you have to look at the basis to see how much is coming out in owner draws. With a partnership, it's similar, but partnerships can have what they call guaranteed payments, so that that money comes out on a regular basis. And with partnerships, you do not have, you don't pay salaries. The partners are allowed to have their ownership portions and draws based on that.
And then what are you taxed on if you're LLC or partnership? Are you taxed on the draws, or are you taxed on the salary you make, or how's that work?
With sole proprietors, SMLLCs, you're not taxed on the draws. You're taxed on the net income bottom line that is recorded on your Schedule C, which is attached to your standard 1040 reporting. So it's the net income that gets taxed.
Okay. Now, Richard, I just launched a business brokership. So people that are trying to sell their businesses, obviously they need to get their financials in order to make the transaction smoothly, timely, and it's also so people can make good educational decisions on whether that business is some business they want to get involved in. We deal with a lot of people that, are trying to save themselves on taxes. So their tax return for their business is not going to necessarily be what they actually earn when it comes to, the net profits, right? So we do a lot of take backs, right? We're going to put this back on. We're going to put this back on so we can show, right? Especially if they want to do an SBA loan, because SBA loans are based on the tax returns. So if they're going to do an SBA loan, and the guy wants to come in and wants to take an SBA loan, but yet the tax returns don't justify it, or there's such a big gap they don't want to pay the difference, right? So, so I'm dealing with a lot of those situations, and whatnot. Do you offer those type of services to get people where they can get their business on the financial side, where they could actually make a good case why their business is for sale and why it's worth this much, etc.? Have you done that before?
Yes. Whatever kind of cleanup we need to do, whatever kind of categorization we need to do, yes, we work with that.
Gotcha.
Predominantly what Kirkwall does is we have 3, call it business groupings. One is the bookkeeping, which includes project basis, cleanup, and the ongoing subscription services. We do provide, if the customer requests it, and we have experience of doing accounting management services, which include CFO services, controller services, and accounting manager services. And then we do taxes, including tax planning, tax preparation for income taxes, as well as preparation for state and local taxes, including property taxes, including sales and use tax, and things like that. So we pretty much do a lot of the same stuff that your local CPA is going to do, but we'll do it more as prep work for the CPA and probably at a lower rate than most CPAs charge when they charge on an hourly basis.
Right, right. Well, that's good to know. Wealth of knowledge here, Richard, on everything you shared today, especially through the differences of accountant versus bookkeeper, the different tax brackets, the different structures of corporations, your experience in 35 years in corporate finances and things like that. So how can people get a hold of you if they're looking for services? Do you work in all the different states across the nation, or is it just California, or what do you service?
For the bookkeeping services, all across the United States. For accounting management services, that is mostly across the United States, more on a virtual basis. And for taxes, one thing that we've looked at is for most states, if you are an attorney, a CPA, or an enrolled agent, you can do taxes anywhere. I'm a registered tax preparer in the state of California in particular, but there are only 7 states in the US that have additional regulations for tax preparation. And if we end up with a client in one of those states, we will proceed to get our certification or approval for those states. And they include Nevada, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I believe, and a couple others. So if we end up with having to do taxes for those states, we would make sure that we are authorized by the state to do the filing. We are set up with electronic filing for the IRS. And so we are anywhere in the US, we are open to looking to see what we can do for our clients. Here in the US, we have a website, which is www.kirkwallgroup.net. If you want to email us, it's info@kirkwallgroup.net. Or you can give us a call at 626-263-9437 or 833-KIRKWAL.
There you go. Very good. I'm showing this across the bottom of the screen for you, those that are watching. Make sure you get a hold of Richard and his group here. And kirkwallgroup.net is their website. Phone number is 626-263-9437, or you can call them at 833-KIRKWALL and get a hold of them and sign up for that free 30-minute evaluation. Find out what services you need. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a business that's serious and you want to grow, you want to keep an eye on your finances and make sure you can do the things. Like, for example, you want to hire someone. You might not even know if you have enough money to do that and how much money you need on hand to do that. Let's just say it takes a while for you to get a return on that investment of hiring someone. Well, Richard would be able to help you determine that based on the financial picture that you have. Some of you may need the services because you don't know how to read a P&L or a balance sheet. You don't understand what that means. He can take care of you for that. So reach out to Richard. He's got a wealth of knowledge. We just went over almost an hour of information, of experience that he shared with us today. Make sure you go to his website, check him out, and sign up for that free consultation so that you can get to know more about what he does and what he offers. Richard, is there anything else that we didn't cover or something you want to cover so that we make sure we include it here for the audience today?
I think we covered everything.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Richard, it was great having you on the show today. Be my guest. And we look forward to down the road having you again and connecting with you in a big way. So I appreciate you coming on the show today. Be my guest. It's an honor to have you here and talking about the business that you run and the service of the customers that you have as well. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.